featured poet. Yes. Haley Nicole Prentice is our featured poet tonight. She was born in DeWitt in Arkansas County. She's lived all over the state, including McGehee, Pine Bluff, Monticello, and North Little Rock. She now lives in Star City. She's currently employed as a meat cutter, floating at different stores across the state. She is also engaged in the hobby of distant listening on the radio. It's also known as DXing. It's like a whole underground community, I guess, of like radio listeners. I don't know. Maybe she can tell us about that. She holds a valid amateur radio license and participates in field day events with the ARRL, which are held in late June. She graduated from Glendale High School and has worked multiple jobs before earning her bachelor's degree from the University of Arkansas at Monticello in management. She has been coming to Wednesday Night Poetry since February of this year, but joined our community during the pandemic, sent in a few videos during the course of the pandemic. But I really love that Haley is an ancestor, is an elder of the transgender community. She talks about her stories and her experiences in a way that is authentic. And you know, sometimes we have kids from the high school sitting on the floor here, and you know, LGBTQ kids sitting on the floor, and they look up and they listen to Haley's stories and they're like, wow, like she survived, you know, and I just think it's so beautiful that Haley talks about her experiences, and even though it's taken her till this point in her life to be fully out and proud, you know, we're just super happy. I'm really super happy to be a safe space for Haley to share her story. So she's our featured poet tonight. Oh, please clap it up for Haley Nicole Prentice.
I just need to get the tripod stretched out.
All right, got that.
Let's get this
All the way.
all the way, and this it's that last one, little one, and it locks into place, and
Let's lock that tight.
well, that's
Nope.
well, that one wanted a
Okay.
that one wanted it off. I'm sorry, just
Give her a second to set up, talk amongst yourself. Do not pay any attention to what's going on the stage.
it's all good. It's amazing.
Whoa.
Okay. We're going to I can reverse this and okay. Now, okay. Let me raise this up. Okay. Hello, Cleveland. My name is Haley Nicole Prentice, and I just recently turned 60. And there's not a lot of us that came from small towns and can say that we survived being a closeted trans kid and then realize their truth later in life, but in a rural community at that. So this is going to be partly a just random poetry about how I've experienced, how I've seen life, and also poetry about my coming of age and such. Okay, the first poem's going to be a little bit intense, and I wrote this just a few months ago, and the language isn't that bad, but there is at least a couple of words that will get this banned from the FCC. Okay, the first poem is titled Trans. We live in paranoid times. Podcasters drunk on toxic masculinity proselytize their young male listeners from the sins of empathy, feminism, and queerness, baptizing them in the rivers of hate. Every day, it's more bullshit and state-sponsored transmedia, fascists posing as limited government conservatives, braying about freedom as they propose more curbs to civil liberties. Growing up, men were men, women were women. That was the official policy of a society that viewed cisnormative behavior sold to us as essential to our future. The media showed us the ideal image of masculine, rough, stoic, fearless, never an apology. Femininity was portrayed as tender, beautiful, lovely, and also pretty. Petty. The red communist, once a symbol of anti-Americanism, has been replaced by an out trans woman living her truth, free of guilt and self-hatred. Those that are nostalgic for the great myth of a time that never was, pine for a time of white supremacy and keeping the women in the kitchen barefoot while with child to outbreed the immigrants. Our trans sisterhood threatens the great replacement and patriarchy, as does the trans brotherhood. Personal testimony shatters the small town mythos into a million pieces. As we said before, nothing nor no one trans us. Not Bugs Bunny cartoons, not 70s disco, not 80s new wave, nor 90s indie films. Okay, I've got to back off that mic a little bit. Okay, I will back off of it a little bit. Okay, I'm a little hard to hit, which is fine. Well, I don't want to overdo it because I don't want to say, well, what happened down there? Okay, the next poem is Nostalgia. Let me get my glasses just a second. There, I can see a little bit better now. Nostalgia. Nostalgia is this. Okay, let me lower this. Okay. Nostalgia. Nostalgia is the smell of vinyl car seats, the smell of gas heaters in winter, the barber shop with piles of hair in the floor, the barber with a reactionary, paranoid opinion, remembering that lost world. Sitting down in a classroom, the desks were wooden, the seats hard, the teacher's word was law. At home, there were only a few snowy TV channels, no cable to go out, nothing to stream, no way to skip commercials, none of which involved lawyers or prescription drugs. In childhood, neighbor kids got together, rode bikes, built forts, sometimes fought. A Friday night as a teen, hanging out with friends, finding some girls from another school, seeing their permed hair and heavy makeup while they clandestinely smoked their long, slim cigarettes. Another night of misfit youth, weirdly playing loud music in a car, the cheap aftermarket car stereo blast a hair metal and early hip hop, accompanied by a whine whilst traveling. In church, hymns were always sung, no five-piece bands or worship teams. All the women and girls wore dresses. Fifth Sunday was dinner on the grounds. Some had big weddings, some only eloped. Bridesmaids were always women and girls. No one questioned the gender binary. The longest part of the ceremony was the picture taking. There was computers, but these were clunky large boxes with a green or amber screen until the Mac came along and Windows appeared in due time. Shortwave radio was around. It was a third world lifeline and a first world niche hobby. Propaganda filled the ether, mixed in with interval signals. Politics was as divisive then as now, but less polarized, at least from the surface, until AM radio granted Rush Limbaugh a Faustian bargain. That lost world is remembered as both nostalgia and a living witness. Those days will never repeat, only reenacted with cherry-picked biases and the passage of time. Okay. This one is entitled Storm Warning. As winter transitions into warmer days, when Mardi Gras gives way to Lent, before Easter arrives, Southerners are on guard in the area known as Tornado Alley. The weather folks are on the TV, talk about potential severe weather, putting nervous people on edge, especially the older folk that have seen a bad storm or two. A grandmother of a local girl has a bad feeling in her bones. She anticipates a nasty, severe storm. The crosswinds get whipped up as a hot wind blows across her shoulder. The granddaughter notices a bulletin flash on the TV. Her grandmother's story is interrupted. A man wearing a white shirt and dark tie appears, talking about a tornado on the ground a mere county away. Suddenly, strange sounds are heard. The weather alert radio sounds a loud tone. A tornado warning is issued. The grandmother and granddaughter take cover, just in case they are in the direct path. And this is very timely. This is here in about 10 days or so. We'll be transitioning back to standard time. And this was a poem I wrote back in the spring called Daylight Savings. Daylight Savings. Clocks move forward. My body jarred from the sudden shift. An aging body seeing another year. Lurching closer toward leaving this life. Fast forwarded an hour. Going to work in darkness again. After a few weeks of seeing the pre-dawn twilight, Skywave AM waves drift into the car radio from places never intended to be heard at my location. I arrive at work, still in darkness, another day to pay debts, another day to mark time, until this life passes and I'm just a memory. I arrive home still in daylight, time to cook and clean, and mow the yard when the grass becomes green and grows again, unless snakes and rain have other ideas. As the sun sets, another day ends, just another day for us all. Wash, rinse, repeat, until the weekends, unless one is in the service industry. And speaking of radio, this is a poem. This is one of the poems I decided to bring tonight. And it is not autobiographical, but is about a boy who discovers the hobby of radio as his grandfather did. That was not in my case, but this was, I thought this would have been a great story to tell. The poem is called Software Defined Radio, and if you're interested in what a software defined radio is, just go to your search engine and look that up. It'll tell you a little bit more. Software-defined radio. A cold evening before dark. His eyes approached the screen of the laptop, attached to a small box, attached to some wires outside. Strange sounds begin to be heard from places far away. He's not streaming music, but listening to the radio. A radio not like the one his parents and sister have. This is not for hearing the latest Chappell Roan song, unless it's heard from far, far away from home. His passion is odd for someone so young. His grandfather did the same years ago, which makes little sense in the digital age where communicating long distances is as easy as logging on Discord or Facebook Messenger. There's no dial to turn on this newfangled software-defined radio. No tubes to heat up or change out. A myriad of bandwidths can be selected, as well as AM, FM, narrowband FM, USB, LSB, and synchronous AM. Just keep the software updated timely. His best female friend asked one day, "What is with all the wires around your house? Why are you so obsessed with all those weird sounds? And why did you ask me to the prom when I already have a boyfriend?" We lived in McGee, Arkansas. There were 2 radio stations we could get. One was nearby. It's no longer on the air. It was called KVSA, the Voice of Southeast Arkansas, KVSA, 1220 on your dial, McGee, Arkansas, located on Highway 65, halfway between McGee and Dermont. That was actually the liner that they would read off at the station ID. Actually, not that. The second station they picked up on their radio in the kitchen was KAY Little Rock, and that you would hear 50,000 watts, clear channel, and I picked in 1976. I picked that up while I visiting my grandmother in Northwest Arkansas.
Do you have like special equipment or something? Did you use like tin cans?
You can actually start out with just a regular transistor radio, but then people get very specialized and get these software-defined radios and these communication receivers and ham radio transceivers, and the sky's the limit with it. And there's even a way, if you don't have a receiver or a radio, you can listen to web. There are people have set up software-defined radios that can be set up and listened to remotely. And there's some it's public, and you can go look up web SDR, and there's several sites you can listen to SDRs located in Europe, here in this country, and everywhere in between.
Yeah, I pictured you as like, you know those old movies when they're like listening and they're like, yeah.
Yeah, they had that.
And all of a sudden they're like hearing aliens or like Russian spies talking and they like infiltrate like some secret code. Like that's what I told them. Was like, oh yeah, cool. Aliens are spies. Yeah.
Yeah, it had the headsets on. CQDX. Okay. That was sort of the part of the poetry here was a little general. I am a radio enthusiast. My call sign is Kilo Charlie 5 Kilo Bravo Victor, and I am somewhat active. Not as active as I used to be, but somewhat active. Okay, the next poems are going to be more autobiographical in nature. And I'm going to start out with The Girl I Always Was. She was born nearly 6 decades ago, a child of 2 Arkansans from different regions. Her hair was dark brown, as were her eyes, but she was assigned male at birth, thus given a boy name. She had trouble speaking. She could read from an early age. Her love of reading started early, but math would bewilder her and become an albatross. She always had girlfriends, a first cousin and later other sister figures, but because she had a boy name and looked like one, she was supposed to play the role of Romeo, but was more comfortable being Juliet. In high school, she wanted to be a homecoming queen. She looked lonely at the cheerleaders. She could be neither then, because those with boy names and boy parts couldn't wear the gown or cheer for the Glendale Beavers. After high school, she fell into a rabbit hole of uncertainty. She was a late bloomer at dating as a boy. Soon she met two cheerleaders from another school. She wanted to be like them, but had to play the role of an admirer instead. She would go on to college, but her career path took a strange turn. She nearly had a nervous breakdown after a bad job and retreated back to her parents' home, still wearing male clothing. She would meet her first spouse, whom had no idea her husband was a girl inside. They would separate. Then she met an older woman and married her as a guy, but that didn't last either. 15 years after a dark-haired cheerleader cracked open her heart, the girl with the boy name and parts began to emerge from the shadows, in baby steps at first, crawling, then walking, then running. She began to catch up with her lost past. Making up for lost time was her goal. She did so slowly, though. Her dad didn't see her as a girl, but as a boy child he gave his name to. Upon the death of her father, the girl with the boy name and parts vowed to become whom she was openly, legally, and authentically. COVID lockdowns and her aging joints almost derailed plans, but she was ever determined to take care of business. 11 days before her 58th birthday, she started her physical journey. It would not be an overnight transformation. She would need time to adjust. The changes would take place in due time. She would eventually come out at work and change her name in the courts. Finally, the girl with the boy name and boy parts had a name that was more appropriate, even as the boy parts remained in place but retreated. After years of hiding in plain sight, Haley was ready to live openly. Some were bewildered. Some were longing for the boy she appeared to be, a boy that never really was. As the youthful-looking trans elder approaches 60, she is reminded of how far she has traveled. Even if she has never left her country of origin, her journey has been eventful, even when there were delays and detours. We all have a purpose. Sometimes we don't understand. Sometimes we are tested and taught lessons. Sometimes the best things in life are not what most desire, but the things that truly make us happy. I have a couple of stories about my crushes, so be it, with those who were and former cheerleaders tonight. The first one was when I was in the 10th grade as a team manager for the basketball team, the boys team at Glendale, and we had a 6 overtime game at Kingsland, Arkansas that night. But there was also another part of that game that I remember very importantly, vividly, in fact. There was a young lady that reached out to me and we talked. But at that time, I didn't have a vehicle and I had no way to drive to Kingsland to go see her. I wanted to give her my phone number or get her phone number, but I had no way to drive then, so we never did connect. And I was 16 years old. The name of this poem is Kingsland. It was a memorable night 42 years ago. It was a memorable night. This was written last year. And I'm going to start over again. It was a memorable night 42 years ago. A small town in Cleveland County, best known for its favorite son, Johnny Cash. Kingsland was a road game for the Glendale Beavers. I was the team manager for the boys' teams. Team manager is a fancy term for a water boy. The coach realized I wasn't going to be another Larry Bird. Too slow, big, and short for the post position. But I could fill another role, not on a roster, but on the bench. Thus, I spent my sophomore year as part of the team. Kingsland was just another stop on the team's schedule. We had a nice season going before a district tourney loss kept us out of the state tournament. In the midst of this run came a road trip to face the Greyhounds. It would turn out to be a night to remember. We had some prelim games, the junior teams, and then the senior girls. I would be on the bench for the junior and senior boys in their locker room. When things were rough, when things were smooth, all was well. When the going got tough, so did the language. Something to be expected from the coach. Between games, I would notice the cheerleaders walking around for Kingsland. One in particular seemed to eye me with a curious look. I took notice, and the girls came to speak to me, one of which I wanted to ask out. But I didn't have a car at the time, and Kingsland was a long drive from my town. The girl that spoke to me was not like many cheerleaders I encountered. She was chubby, but down to earth and friendly, the kind of girl I liked and secretly wanted to be. She told me her name, and I wished she lived closer, but our encounter was brief, and we went our separate ways, alas, without me asking for her number. I don't recall the junior nor senior girls' games much. The senior varsity would steal the show, though. The Beavers and Greyhounds would battle for a marathon on the hardwood. 6 overtimes it took to break the tie, which warranted a story in the Pine Bluff commercial. We embarked on the bus and headed back home. I often thought of that girl. She would not be my only cheerleader crush. I didn't recall seeing her after that year. I stepped down as team manager after that season. High school is a time of learning and stretching our wings. Sadly, I would endure malaise and disappointments for years, all the while harboring a secret shame. Did I want to be the girl, be her, or both? Time would prove a hard schoolmaster. A few days ago, I visited an online archive of yearbooks. The girl I remembered was in a few of them. I learned a bit more about her and regret not getting to know her better. I cannot change the past, but I hope she is doing well and living her best life. Okay, I have one. I didn't realize I was going this. I was taking this long here. Okay, I'm going to reread one I first read in February of this year. This is the first poem I wrote in decidedly modern times. And in writing this helped crack open my desire to write more poetry. And I thought this would be just maybe a one-off and maybe a couple more, but it's led to many other poems. The title of this is Still Waters Ran Deep, and it is about longing and reconciling your past. I can't remember the first time I saw her. a basketball game perhaps, the tall cheerleader from a privileged background, dark brown hair and a sultry southern accent. It was many years ago. A young guy trying to fit in, being working class from a small town, still recovering from a first puberty, captivated and bewildered by the feminine, hoping like hell no one knew about my own feminine desires, buried deep down the facade of a macho nickname and performative behavior. A cheerleading teammate somehow introduced us, just a casual acquaintance. That was the beginnings of my fascination with this girl. A unique name and a unique appearance, not unlike my plain Jane attempts at manhood. I casually mentioned my interest in this girl to a good friend of mine that was also a girl, an emerging young woman. Almost immediately was warned of her alleged femme fatale reputation, that I was out of her league and nice guys had no business with bad girls, so I was told anyways. My stubbornness, along with desire and gender envy, would test my resolve. How could I take an interest in someone I had no business with? She was way out of my league, and I was a fool for thinking otherwise. Thoughts of those appearing as young men are not always rational, even those that clandestinely wore dresses in middle school. Somehow, this dream girl learned of my crush and tried to quell it. I don't remember how she read my mind, but I realized it was a secret I couldn't keep. A dream girl, or the siren that would doom me. She tried to let me down easy. When I didn't read her cue, I endured her wrath. In due time, I would forget about her. Just another girl from my past. I tried to bury, from an apparent guy that liked girls and the dresses they wore. Many years later, I came to my senses. My femininity was not a phase. I wasn't the macho guy I long portrayed, but a girl buried deep inside. A journey of truth and reconciliation would follow. Soon I became that woman in the flesh and outside the closet. As I entered my second puberty, I rediscovered some memories of my previous life, some important and some trivial. Nostalgia took root. Soon I fell into a rabbit hole and stumbled across an old picture of my former crush. That formerly young woman wasn't my only manifest of gender envy or the last, but she became a symbol of what I desired as a young man, who might have cured me once and for all of all my shyness, awkwardness, and sub-rosa femininity, at least in my closeted, eggy mind. A footnote in my journey that I tried not to fall and drown into still waters that ran deep.